using artificial intelligence to strengthen your nonprofit and to advance your cause. Hi, I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the fundraising school, and I'm joined today by Darian Heyman and Cheryl Contee. They are the co-authors of the book, AI for Nonprofits, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for Your Cause. And we're so glad that our co-authors are joining us here today. Darian, let me start with you. How can artificial intelligence be put to work to advance our cause?
Well, Bill, I mean, that's, we tackled a lot of different ways to answer that question in the 600 pages of the book. What I would say in general, though, is, more than thinking about the technical terms of what is a GPT, I would think of it as a general purpose technology. It's something that can really enable all aspects of your work, whether that's, writing emails, creating podcasts like this one, whether it's fundraising for your organization and managing donors and funders, whether it's creating, running, and evaluating programs, back office operations, marketing and community engagement. Essentially, the applications are limitless, and it's like electricity or the internet. It's helping you do everything you do more efficiently and more effectively if it's responsibly leveraged.
Oh, I love that metaphor. Love that metaphor, Darian. Now, I do want to assure our audience who are looking at us on video, these are three real people, not AI avatars. Okay. So just to clear that up, make sure everybody knows, because Cheryl, some folks are worried about AI. Hal's going to close the door and not let us in, right? And all the things. As you've done this work and working on the book and talking to folks, what are some of the common myths or worries that you see nonprofit folks having that you just want to reassure them just are not the case?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Bill. One of the big things that we heard, and one of the reasons we wrote the book, is that, we heard leaders in the nonprofit sector saying things like, oh, well, here, we're not going to be using AI at all. And, it's like, oh, sweetie, honey, baby. It's like saying in the 1990s, we're not going to use email. I mean, good luck with that. Like, not only are you already using AI in your work, whether you know it or not, AI is already using you. So, getting a hold of this technology and actually, using it to your benefit to take away all of the things in your workflow that are tedious, time consuming, repetitive, so that you can actually spend more time doing the things that only humans can do. That's the power of AI. Another big one is, well, if we use AI, I'm going to lose my job or, jobs. And, that's not a thing that we're seeing, much of, at least not yet. I believe the truth is that it's going to create jobs, but also fundraising ultimately is about trust. No chatbot can look a donor in the eye and persuade them, that their cause is worth donating to. Another myth: AI is too expensive. And that's not true. There's a great website that's one of my favorites. It's called thereisanaIforthat.com. Literally, that's the name of the website. And, if you go there, you can see just the gigantic breadth of all of the different free and even low cost apps that are out there that nonprofits can use. And then finally, we'll be fine without it. Again, that's not the case. And this is actually an opportunity to feel as if you already now have, you've doubled your staff, right? Without spending an extra dime.
That is a great answer. Darian, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great question, Bill, and it is one of the things that really hampers the conversation around AI for good, because there's so much excitement, there's so many conversations out there, and frankly, a lot of it is not Pollyannish, but it's only focused on the positive aspects and the opportunities of AI, and there are plenty of people out there that have some reservations, some concerns, and what I find is when we only focus on the positive, we leave a big chunk of people behind. And so it is really critical that we take some of these fears and concerns head on and tackle them directly. The biggest one that pops up at the top of all of the surveys is concerns around data privacy and security. And that is a valid concern, I have to tell you, Bill. And the point here is that data is the currency of the AI economy. And all of the projections are showing that all these AI models that are just kind of hoovering up all the information they could possibly find, they're going to run out of data at the end of next year potentially. And so they're looking for new sources of data. One of the ones they've landed on is every time you're entering a prompt into ChatGPT, that's becoming part of its next generation training data. And so if you're putting personally identifiable information, donor data, HIPAA compliant information in there, that's a problem. And so people should be concerned about data security and privacy. The good news is, like Cheryl was saying, there's a lot of free and low cost fixes out there. And as it relates to data privacy, if you set up a custom large language model, essentially your own private AI, and have a sandbox that you and your team can play in, number one, that data will be secure. But more importantly, perhaps, number two is it will be trained on your organization, your programs, your mission, and your voice. And so the outputs it generates will be like something that an intern on your team could generate once they get to know your style.
And I want to throw in one more aspect before continuing the conversation with Darian, and that is one thing that is not a myth is the concern about accuracy. Name something. This is Mateo Wong in the Atlantic. Name something that's 4 years old and is still wrong 1/3 of the time, and yet is getting all these rave reviews. Would you step on that airplane if it didn't work 1/3 of the time? Absolutely not. And yet, so AI in some ways has been oversold. Double check your accuracy. It took AI about a year and 3 or 4 different tries till it named the 3 universities where I've earned all 3 of my degrees. I was really worried that the other ones were going to put me on their alumni donor list. Fortunately, they didn't. And I wasn't contacted by Harvard and Notre Dame and wonderful schools that I did not attend. And I certainly hear from the ones that I did, and that's a good thing. So, Darian, one of the points you make in the book, and I really love this early on, is while we are using artificial intelligence for all the positive ways that Cheryl described, is to not lose sight of our beneficiaries, to not lose sight of our cause. You talk about people being left behind, and maybe you also thought about in terms of nonprofits, but this is very core to the book and the passion that you and Cheryl have to make sure we're doing this in a way that helps our cause, includes our beneficiaries. Can you say more about that, please?
I mean, honestly, Bill, I think it's just as simple as saying AI is a tool, right? And what is the purpose of a tool? It's to make our lives better, make our lives easier, and help us do the things that we want to do. And AI is a really robust tool that can be applied in lots of different ways. Cheryl talked about the concern, of job loss in the sector, and again, we haven't seen that yet. What does look like it's going to come down the pike, though, is that it's the people that are comfortable using AI and are able to increase their effectiveness, their productivity, that are going to be the workforce of tomorrow. And so it's really critical to embrace these tools and to gain fluency, at this really early stage. But as you are employing a tool, as a community-led organization that is here to serve the community, to serve our beneficiaries, we can never lose sight of that. We can never try to tell ourselves that suddenly we're an AI nonprofit just because that's a tool we use, just like we're not a CRM or donor database nonprofit. Those are all tools, but we're in the relationship business. We're in the community revitalization business. We're here to work with marginalized communities and lift them up. And if AI can provide us with some tools so that we can raise more money, so that we can reach more people, so that we can serve them more effectively and quantify our efforts and learn faster so we can do a better job at that, then wonderful. And if it can't, we shouldn't use it. And so I think that is the lens, is how can this help me do more with less? And that is a question, unfortunately, Bill, that nonprofits across the country are having to ask themselves nowadays. And it does not look like some of the instability economically is going to be addressed anytime soon. And so we need to build resilience and we need to build self-sufficiency. And AI is a great tool to help us do that.
Thank you for that, Darian. And as powerful as AI is, it does not have the lived experience, nor will it ever, of marginalized populations, the person who's living with food insecurity. The person who loves the arts and enjoys the art museum and going to the theater doesn't have that lived experience. And so whatever cause we're pursuing, the people who we're serving, we need to make sure their voice continues to be included, even with all the power of AI. And both of you talked about job loss. I just want to remind our audience, we have a wonderful podcast with Andy Price of Scouting America. He's a CEO. He does hiring. And his answer to that was, in terms of job loss, name me one nonprofit that has people sitting around with nothing to do. I'll show you all the nonprofits who can't get to everything they want to do. And if AI saves us time, we can do more mission productive things that only human beings can do. And Cheryl, the book points out we're the fundraising school, and there are good chapters on fundraising, but you're telling us AI can help me develop my board, write my strategic plan, put my budget together, because this is AI for nonprofits, not just AI for fundraising. Help us understand all these types of things AI can do for us.
Oh, there's so many things that AI can do, in this time. And I think that, those who are saying, oh, I'm scared, I don't know how to get started, it's pretty easy to get started. And, there are so many applications. So, a great one would be donor research. Instead of taking weeks, it can take minutes. It can scan public data and summarize, a potential prospect's interests, their giving patterns, their history. It's basically like a cliff notes for your next meeting. Or personalized thank you letters, at scale, instead of just sort of a copy and paste, you just get this, formulaic message in the mail, something that really feels like it's from the heart, and is responding to that personal human being. Grant writing support. AI is not going to write the grant for you, but it can help you outline, polish the language, check for clarity, find even more donors, with whom to, write grants. There are so many things. Donor segmentation and messaging. It can help you really get super granular, with who you're fundraising from and why and when, and generate, 2x, 10x as much money as you were before. So, I think that, AI is not going to replace fundraisers, but AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows AI very well will take your job. So the same for fundraising. AI is not going to replace amazing fundraisers who are coming to this work, with heart and knowledge, right, and lived experience. But fundraisers who are using AI will replace those who aren't.
Darian, I want to ask you then to hone in on fundraising in particular. And as we learn more about what AI can do, you have written and spoken so well about, concern for our staff, concern for the people we serve in our cause. At our school, we teach the word generosity, that all gifts matter. All donors are important, regardless of the gift size. And I know you agree with that. And yet people are saying, hey, the great thing about AI is it can identify the small number of the wealthiest people and I can spend all my time with them. Can you help us with that balance where, of course, we want to identify and qualify major gift donors, but not in a way necessarily that leaves everyone else out? Cheryl used that word segmentation. How can we be using AI in the best ways for major gift fundraising, but in an inclusive way of all donors?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Bill, fundraising needs to be a diversified effort. And so it is critical that we don't neglect the grassroots support of small donors. Political movements, nonprofits, many organizations have been built largely off of that support at the $5 a person level. And then there's also the opportunity at the major gift level that Cheryl's talking about. And what I would say is a couple things. You talked about this idea of hallucinations, right? You talk, and this connects the dots to that idea of the workforce concerns, right? Because the reality is I liken today's AI to the drunk frat guy at the bar who is equally confident about what he's saying, whether it's accurate or completely false. And he doesn't know the difference. And that's what we're dealing with today. I think that will probably get much better over time, but that is why it is absolutely critical for us to have a human in the loop, a person that is working with the robots, right? And ultimately, what's going to be most important as a fundraiser is thinking about what is this tool good for? Again, I mentioned AI as a tool, and you want to think about how can I deploy this tool to automate rote functions, right? I'm sending out a donor letter to every $5 donor that comes in. That's tedious. It's also really critical to your point, and that touch point is what I need to do as a person, but can the robots create that template for me? Absolutely. It's also really helpful with the data analysis side. That's another superpower of it. So if I'm looking at, all the different articles that have been written about you, and I'm, your alumni organization trying to make a major ask, I want to know about what is your connection to our organization? What has your support looked like over the past? What are your personal interests that align with some of our fundraising goals? And AI can put together a really great dossier to help with all of that. And then the third leg of the stool is really what's coming next is the crystal ball feature of AI, which is predictive analytics. And from a fundraising standpoint, we're probably a year or two away to a point where, you're going to get a little dossier on your desk at the beginning of each week from the robots saying, here you go, Bill. Here's your call list this week. Here are the 5 donors that are ready for you to contact them. It has been the appropriate amount of time. Here are pre-written emails for each to tee up a conversation, asking them about the wife and kids or the dog or the weather in, Arizona, and reminding them of their connection to the university or the nonprofit, and, asking them for a gift at the appropriate amount with the right positioning. All of that is like right around the corner. And so being able to experience and learn these tools at their current incarnation is going to put you at the head of the class from a fundraising and far beyond perspective as it relates to all aspects of nonprofit management and just professional development in general. This is, again, the new internet, the new electricity. And so using it at this early stage is going to enable you to be at the front of the line as some of these new features and functionality roll out. And this notion of agential AI as autonomous agents, that is really what's coming right around the corner that's going to make some of this incredible functionality around predictive analytics possible.
Thanks for that wise guidance, Darian. And yes, Cheryl, I just want to ask you, what have we missed? What else do nonprofit leaders need to know?
Every nonprofit I've worked with, and I've worked with literally hundreds of nonprofits over the years, is sending out emails, right? Soliciting, or social media posts, soliciting donations. And just about all of those have an inbox where people are responding. People respond to those messages, asking questions, talking about their own experiences. No one is answering those emails because they're so busy doing other things. There's not enough time to spend that time making those human connections. What if you were able to talk to your supporters who are actually reaching out to you? How much more money could you raise? How much more human connection could you have if you actually allow the robots, to do all the, again, tedious, time-consuming, repetitive, not so fun, labor, while you actually are now freed up to actually answer every single one of those comments on your Facebook or Instagram, every single one of those emails that have come back to you from what you've sent out.
Cheryl Contee and Darian Rodriguez Heyman are the co-authors of AI for Nonprofits, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for Your Cause. And before I talk a little bit about the fundraising school, I want to say a word about the book. And we've been so fortunate to hear not just the expertise, but also the passion and the heart of our guests here today. And the way the book is laid out, in my opinion, is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to recommend read the first section, folks, read all of it, because you're going to get the philosophy behind where Cheryl and Darian are coming from. But then the rest of the book, if you don't have time for the whole book, cherry pick the topic that is most urgent at the moment. And what they've done is they've interviewed a subject matter expert around that topic and then giving you how-tos on how to implement what that subject matter expert is talking about. So very practical in that regard. And the individual chapters, it was a big, thick book. The individual chapters are very digestible. So again, it's a wonderful book for us to take advantage of from our good friends at Wiley, published by Wiley. And here at the Fundraising School, yes, we have a course called AI in Fundraising. We also have embedded AI techniques into each and every one of our courses so that you can be putting this into practice. Not just thinking about it, asking the right questions, but how to, along the lines of what we heard today from Darian and Cheryl. 27 courses, 5 certificates. We're in person around the United States, online, anywhere around the world. We have custom training, quarterly webinars, this weekly podcast, our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Make sure you look for the 5th edition and all of it online at go.iu.edu/TFRS. I'm grateful for our producers today, Mike Anthony and Jennifer Boffman. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. Now you are now more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.